Well, I figured out what I'm going to do with my transom. And this is one of the last, actual pieces of woodworking that we got to do, or at least I need to show you before we start just finishing up and mounting things on the inside and getting this baby in the water. You don't have to do what I'm about to do, but I'm going to recommend it, and here's why. I'm going to take 1/4-inch piece of ash. It's highly figured, darker than normal, and it'll look really nice on here. And the reason I'm doing this is I like to cover up joints where this softwood is especially, right? So if you look down the side here, we've got the cedar strips that are coming down the side. Now, with the fiberglass cloth that we got on there, it's all good and strong and all, but it's just a place where, if you take a whacking on a dock or against another boat or a rock or something, it's kind of vulnerable because it is softwood, right? So, I think I like to cover this up, and I do this on most of the boats that I build, unless I'm going more for looks than I am actual functionality. This one I want to be around for a long, long time, and so I'm going to make it as strong as possible. The other thing is these are laminations for our deadwood down here. Again, all good and strong, and if I covered that up with a good UV urethane, it would be fine, but I just want to add a little bit of strength to that, tie all these loose ends together so that I've got one piece of wood coming down here. So it's a pretty simple process. It's gluing up like a lot of the other glue ups that I've already showed you. But there are a couple of things that I think are important that I think I can point out to you here. First is how do you actually attach this to the transom? Well, I'm going to use screws, and I'm going to use them going down the sides here. So I have to do a little bit of calculating. I want to make sure that my screws follow the line of my transom in a nice sweeping curve. And in order to do that, I need to make sure that when I get down to my last piece here, that I basically have a screw pretty darn close to the middle of it. Because that screw is going to start and follow up on each side. And then when I put my piece down here, I'll very carefully put 3 screws, bottom, middle, and top, to tie it all together. Now the screws are a temporary measure. I'm just going to use really inexpensive 3/4-inch screws that you would use for, really thin sheetrock at home or whatever you would use them for. But they're tiny, they're 3/4-inch. All I'm looking to do is hold these planks up against the transom while the epoxy dries. And then I'll go ahead and throw some clamps down the middle, or you could tie a line straight down the center and put screws in the middle of every one of these boards. So if you do that, ultimately what's going to happen is I'm going to back the screws out, going to counterbore that, and I'm going to put bungs in there, wooden bungs. Now, you may choose to do some accents and offsets. This is going to be certainly not as dark as mahogany, but a little bit darker than the seats. Now, you could take mahogany bungs or the purple heart that we used already in the boat, put purple heart bungs going down the sides here. Or you may choose to hide it as much as possible and make bungs right out of the ash. So, what we're going to do is I am now going to carefully trace around everything that we got going here. And a good starting point for your top piece is the bottom of the gunnels on either side. Because if you're like me, you like symmetry. You don't want it to be a little crooked this way, a little crooked that way. I like it to be straight across. So, the best place to start is so that this hits the bottom of the gunnels on either side. And then you just trace around the top, and then I'm just going to trace around the sides here on either side. So it's a pretty simple process. Okay, now what I will tell you is this is a little bit different from some of the work that we've already done, where I keep telling you, cut really proud of the line so that you can come back and make it perfect later. Because a lot of this is going to be finished, we've already got fiberglass down here, and we're going to want to be careful how much we scuff that up with sandpaper, because we certainly don't want to dig into the fiberglass. On the gunnels here, although you may not be able to see it, but you will in a little while when we do our last couple of segments, we have a detail of a vine going up the side of each gunnel. And this will be varnished in the next couple of hours or so. So that'll be set in, so I don't want to scrape that as I'm sanding. So the idea here is, now that I've got these lines, I don't want to cut past the lines for sure, but I want to cut really, really close to the lines, so that when I put it on the boat, the only thing I'm doing is doing a little bit of hand sanding to get it down to where it needs to be. You don't, at this point, want to take too much machinery to the boat, right? Because all it takes is one really big slip up at this point, and you're going to be pretty aggravated. All right, so I've got these traced out. And now I'm just going to take a piece that will go here, and I'm going to trace out either side of this. And all that leaves is the very bottom piece, which will go right here. All right, so that essentially gets me top to bottom. Now, you want to make sure on this bottom piece here that you get up past your laminations. You don't want to have to take a chance on splitting that. You also want to make sure that when you put this on here, that you countersink it really, really well. Because the last thing in the world you want to do is start splitting your laminations down here. Although it would be really, you'd have to really bore a pretty big hole to make that happen. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to take these over to the bandsaw now. No reason to number them because, you know, the shape is going to be obvious. I'm going to take these over to the bandsaw and I'm going to start cutting them out and refitting them. I'm pretty happy with these cuts. This is nothing that I can't hand sand. And I'm real happy with the way it looks. So now I'm gonna back these two pieces out. And now it's time to put in my lines to see where it is we're going to put our screws. So based on the actual size of the planks that we're putting on here, again, I want to have a screw that kind of hits right there. All right, and I'm pretty darn close to it right now. So effectively what you want to do is once you find that spot, you just simply take your compass and you come in and you make an X coming in from both sides and see if that works for you. And again, that's going to put my screw right about here. And if I wanted to move that down just a little bit, down to here, I'd simply need to tighten up and take this in. So right now it's sitting at about 1.5 inches. I think I'm going to pull that into about 1.25 inches. And I think that's going to put me where I want to be. So let me just remark this. Now if I do 1.25 inches, and I make my X, that puts me down to about here. And so that will put my screw right about here, and that's just about perfect. That's just about exactly where I want to be. All right, so as long as I'm happy with all that, I can go ahead and make my lines down the side so I know exactly where all of my screws are going to go. Now, I know that I'm going to put a screw going into the end of each gunnel, and that'll be easy enough. I'll either leave that as a couple of brass screws or maybe a couple of decorative bunks. All right, so now it's just a matter of taking the compass and following along on each side. Good. So now you can see that my screw on this particular piece will be right there, and I should hold that in nice and tight. So you can see the screw line coming down each side. Up top we'll just use a couple of clamps going across the top. That'll be easy enough. All right, so this now is just a matter of doing exactly what we've done before. I'm going to mix up some epoxy. I'm going to paint clear on the back of these pieces and on the transom itself after I sand those X's away. And then we're going to use a little bit of thickener, paint it on the transom, and start to put these up.